I appreciate that.
Hello, Jan Copeland, your host of the Listing Queen Summit. And right now I have the pleasure of showcasing Michelle Berman-Mikel of Berman Media PD. Hello, Michelle.
Hi, thanks for having me. This is so fun.
Oh, I'm so excited. Well, these women want to be listing queens. And so Michelle is going to share with us lots of great, valuable, usable, actionable information. All right, Michelle, I actually have so much that I want to share with you. I love what I see of you online. I go to your Instagram and you have the Instagram Pro method. Is that or the Instagram, what's it called? The method?
The full name is the Instagram Power Method, but Instagram Pro, I'll take that too.
Okay, yeah, power method. I love the power. Okay, yeah. So one of the pillars of what you do and how you help agents is through psychology, to tap into your clients' brains. Can you chat with us more about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. And I think the best way to really dig into why this matters is the Instagram game as a whole, right? Social media as a whole. I feel like in our marketplace, especially on the real estate and mortgage side, right? Really, however you look at that, people are so caught up in vanity metrics. They're so caught up in my reels have to go viral, or I need more followers, or I need more engagement, Michelle. My engagement's so low. And it's kind of these very common surface level conversations. And so I kind of made it my mission many, many years ago to change the tune, if you will, and help people understand that what we're doing on social media is so much more than all of that. And really none of that matters. I don't care how many friends or followers you have. I don't care how many friends you have on Facebook. What I really care about is what the relationships are, what's there, what's behind the curtain that nobody sees. And at the end of the day, what really matters, and I know all of us can agree, what really truly matters is what's in our bank account. So I think when we talk about psychology, the thing that's really important is when you understand why people make purchasing decisions and you understand why people are feeling the things that they're feeling, you can, one, produce better content, right? You can serve them, which is the whole point of being in our industry. Number two, you can have better, more authentic conversations, meaning you can actually reach out to someone and mean it and not just see it as a dollar sign or see it as a transaction. And then most importantly, you'll convert higher because you're actually spending time taking not only the time and the effort, but really having more intention behind the conversations, right? You're not going into it with the expectation of I'm getting something out of this. You're really just caring. And I think that especially when you're talking about a transaction as big as buying or selling a home, you have to care. You better care, because if you treat me like a dollar sign, I'm not going to use you again. And I'm certainly not going to tell other people to use you. So I think that there's a lot more to that, but that's the core of it.
Okay, I totally love that. And what I come from that, what I take from that really is that so many women, I think it's more prevalent with women than men, but I don't coach men, so maybe I'm wrong. But what I know happens with women at any income level. Okay, I have clients over $1 million and they still feel this way. They're apprehensive to sound salesy. And so what I hear loud and clear from you is that's because they're focused on the surface level, metrics, vanity metrics and all of that, when if they would just freaking get in the brain of their best client, their prospects that are motivated and qualified, they have an emotional reason and a logical reason that they want to move, and then focus on that and speak to that and describe what it's like to invite them into your client experience. That's what I just gathered from what you said. And I love that. And I love how you use the words. None of that matters. The vanity metrics don't matter, because it's like what's in your head could be, I'm a CEO, I have a business, I need to make money. But if that's your driving force, it's really going to fall flat. It needs to be from your heart that I'm really wanting to help these people, right? And that's the psychology. So I freaking love that. The next thing that I love about your style, Michelle, and how you help your clients is that you spoke to the need for passion. So can you share with us about how important that internal passion is?
Yeah, I actually just spoke about this not long ago, because it's something that I think gets missed a lot. And I've had the pleasure of, being in some really tight circles in industry. And one of the common themes that I see is that the people who are crushing it, and crushing it is not defined by dollars, right? Crushing it might be they're reaching their own goals, they're exceeding whatever their goal that they might set out for themselves is, because not everybody wants to make $1 million. Not everybody wants to make $100,000. Like, everyone's got their own internal goal. But the number one thing is that, do we exude passion? Can someone listen to us and say, I don't know what you're selling, I don't really care, I just really like you. Can we go get coffee and can we chat? And like, if it goes somewhere, it goes somewhere. And where this conversation came from was, I wrote an article for Inman, and it was about Chat GPT, because it was kind of one of these things that sort of burst onto the scene very recently. And a lot of people are talking about how, oh my gosh, AI, this Chat GPT is going to save me so much time, it's going to save me so much money, and this is awesome. Now I don't have to hire a social media person. Now I don't have to hire this, that, and the third. And it really bothered me, because every single one of us, when we work with a client, there is a story there. There is a relationship that has been created. There is an emotional connection to some, right? Some of us, I know I'm a military wife, and I know that there's a lot of people out there that really love serving that population. And we'll just talk about that specific one for sake of reference. And just this morning, there was a Fort Campbell helicopter that crashed into another one and killed 9 soldiers, right? And this really horrible story. But if you think about the world of this military space, there's a lot of emotion involved when you're helping someone buy and sell a house, when maybe their spouse is deployed, they can't see the house in real life beforehand. For example, my husband and I moved to Fort Polk here in Louisiana, and I was 37 weeks pregnant when we found out we were moving. So I couldn't come look at houses. My husband wouldn't leave me because I could have gone into labor in any moment. So there was no way for us to come out here and see where we were going to be living. So we really had to rely on that agent. And luckily it worked out. But what I will say is that agent has so much opportunity to tell that story and to share those real things that are happening. Can something like AI tell that story? And in my opinion, the answer is no. And why is the answer no? And it's because of that word we're talking about. It's passion, right? No automated system can feel what it feels like to get into the car after you give somebody their keys. And just, if you've ever sat there and you've just been, take a deep breath and you're like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that just happened. I can't believe that I just experienced that. Like, you cannot replace that, and somebody else can't tell that or write that story. So I think passion belongs in our marketplace. And I think that if you come from a place of storytelling, and if you come from a place of, this is really what I love this for XYZ reason, and not because you like helping people find their dream home, because in reality, you're not most of the time. Come at it from a very authentic place and tell more stories, and people will feel how passionate you are about what you do, and they will want to work with you, even if they've literally never spoken to you in their life.
That's right. And I just love so much about that. That's a really cool story. And I've always been told that from 20 years ago when I was in corporate, that facts tell, stories sell. And so
Yes.
passion is an emotion. And like you said, and I coach on this, how emotional it is for buyers or sellers. So how are you when you're at your work, at your like most emotional? Terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So we jump ourselves right into the middle of dealing with people who are at their worst. They're going to show us their worst, theoretically, right? So I love that.
Yeah.
That you tell your story, a machine is not going to be able to give out and exude the emotion, right? And that's another reason why video is so important. But before I go to there, I want to speak to something. I want to repeat something you said, because I think it's amazing. If you're in this summit, it doesn't mean that you have to make 100 or multiple 100 or 500 or 1 million in order to be crushing it, or in order to be successful, because we get to choose what success is, because we all have different seasons in our lives. And I'm so glad you said that, because I always want to make sure that women know that you get to choose what crushing it means in your life. Okay. So you said something about how perhaps some content could actually be hurting people. Can you talk to me about what our, awesome women realtors might be doing that unknowingly is hurting them?
Yeah, great question. And I think that the biggest thing about real estate specifically on social media is that they have this burning desire to show how awesome they are all the time. And it's like, here, I'm in the top 1% of my brokerage, or let me share all of my stats. I've closed $7.8 million this year. Yay, go me. And the reality is that the user, the consumer, does not care how many millions of dollars of transactions you've done, right? What they care about is how can you serve them, and where do they fit into that? Have you served somebody like them? Have you been able to help somebody go from, I don't know if I can do it, to I can do it, and now we are doing it, right? And can someone see themselves working with you? And I think that especially, I love the name of your summit, but I think as women, right, especially, it's like this comparison game. Oh my gosh, you're in the top 1%. Oh, well, I'm only in the top 4%. I guess I'm not very good at what I do. Bull crap, because you are really good at what you do. The reality is that you're just in a different place. You're in a different season. And Mel Robbins, I'm a huge fan of her podcast, but she talks about this, and she says that ultimately the biggest thief of our joy is comparison. And I think specifically when we're talking about content, stop posting things like I'm in the top 1% of my brokerage, or I've done 7.8 million, and start telling more stories in your content. And the best example for this is if you're a brand new agent, you've never gotten a listing before, ever. But let's say you left an industry prior to this, and now you decided to get into real estate. Tell a story about something you did for a client. Leave the industry out of it. Don't even say that I was in the banking industry. Don't even say that I was a CPA. Like, leave all of that out, and just tell a story of an experience of how you had someone who you were working with. Here's what you had to overcome. And in the act of overcoming that, you felt compelled to tell this story. And that will allow people to say, you know what, I know, Jan, maybe you've never done a transaction before, but can I hire you? And the reality is that the person on the other end of it may not ever know, and really doesn't need to know, that you've never done a transaction. So that's the biggest thing, is talking about volume is definitely making you feel less than, and it's also hurting the true desire of what our content is meant to do. The second really big problem is that we're posting very vanilla white noise content. I talk about this all the time. If you are talking about VA loans because that's what you love, or if you're talking about, helping nurses, like let's say you specialize in that, you're a former nurse, now you're a real estate agent trying to serve nurses. It's just a good example. In that process, sharing flyers, screenshots of things that you get from your title company, very vanilla marketing material that has like the 5 steps to the home buying process, using lots of stock images, things like really pretty living rooms that you can tell is just a picture off of Google, that type of stuff. There's one really big thing that it's doing, but really there's 2 points I want to make. Number one is it's devaluing you. It's telling the consumer that's looking at your content that's the only source of value you had to give. So that's as good as it's going to get. And unfortunately, even if we feel like, oh, well, it's fast and it's easy and at least it's better than nothing, I disagree. I think I would rather you post nothing but pictures of your dog than stock images of a fake bathroom that you got off Google that has 5 things about spring you need to know for your house, because it doesn't add value to you. It really takes it away from the person that you're trying to be, right? And then the second thing, as far as that's concerned, is if you're not producing content that's meant for the platform, if you're not adhering to the standard of what the platform is telling you to produce, the consumer is going to think that you don't really know what you're doing. You're not very organized. You don't really have an understanding of what's happening. And that's probably not true, but perception is reality when we're talking about social, and you have a very quick time frame, 6 to 8 seconds before the person on the other end of that is going to care. And if you can't make them care in a very short amount of time, game over, right? So stop posting that stuff, and understand that perception, unfortunately, is reality. And we have to get past those 6 to 8 seconds to allow people the opportunity to get to know who you really are. But if your content is the same conversation, which this is my least favorite one, but the whole marry the house, date the rate thing, please stop posting that. If I see one more, like,
God, I have to
that does nothing. That does nothing for the consumer. They don't even know what that means, right? Tell a story around how someone was able to get into a home at 6% and what that will mean for them in 2 years. It's okay, right? Instead of posting a vanilla cookie cutter graphic that your marketing company just was like auto posted for you to social media. Like, it's just not, it's not going to serve you.
I love it.
I
Oh
could
my
go
God.
on and on.
Bravo, bravo. And I'm glad you went off on that, because I'm constantly talking about how you think that the solution to your content is, I'm not going to name names, but company names and modern, this and that for, no, because then you're going to look like everybody else. Everything looks pretty, but it's dead. It's like the prettiest girl that's the shell of a person that doesn't even share her brain, because she's just a shell of a person. So I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. And in the academy that I teach, I have people with their assets, which is exactly what you're talking about, which is you are the biggest asset. So why don't we start there? And then your client's experience with you, that's another asset, that's what you're pumping out. And you think, well, that story doesn't really resonate. Well, that's because you're in a hurry to get to the next deal. Why don't you just slow down, take it easy, and just think about, what is the story that I can share from this last closing that I just had, as opposed to getting them to hold a sold sign. And that is so done. Oh my gosh, I couldn't be. So I love that content is hurting you. All right. You talked about, I don't know where I saw this, Michelle, but you said that the connotation I got from what I read was that the marriage of Instagram with email marketing.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I think, you married those, and I agree with that 100%, that you just can't throw all your eggs in one basket. Let's just layer what I offer to people and repeat with delight. So could you share with us about what you believe about the marriage of email marketing with your?
Yes, without a doubt. So I can tell you, and it's so funny you asked me this question, because it's like burning in my brain. But I am in the middle of building a house in Tennessee. My husband and I are getting ready to PCS to Fort Campbell. And the thing about that is, when you're buying a house, right, you get all of these marketing emails. You get all these like, here's where you are in your transaction. Congratulations. And it's like this animated GIF email that you're like, delete, right? And this is my fourth house that I've either bought or sold in my life. And I can tell you that every time it makes me more and more irritated. And so when I, many years ago, created the Instagram Power Method, which was in mid 2019, I said, there has to be a way for us to create better content, more elevated content, have better conversations, and then leverage this platform called email, right? Or our CRM. I use Active Campaign. Everyone uses different ones. It doesn't really matter what you're using. They all, in theory, do very similar, if not the same things. So my thought process was, how can I teach people to create better content, serve people at a higher level, have better conversations in their DMs and on Instagram in general? And then how can I teach them to pick that up and replace the boring marketing emails that always go out instead? So there's 4 main email templates that I teach. We have written the templates. We have multiple variations of the templates. It's very meant for each person to be able to put themselves into it where it makes the most sense. But the 4 are, number 1 is a testimonial email. So you're, instead of asking at the end of a transaction, here, can you go leave me a Google review, or here, let me send you a text message. And can you fill out this survey and I'll post it on Zillow or whatever, right? How can we ask for that and get the same result in a more fun, interactive way that someone's going to actually remember?
Yes.
So one of the things that we've done is, and I don't want to give away all the secret sauce, but I will tell you that this particular email has been wildly successful. So I'll use a recent client as an example. So she went to Baskin-Robbins, took her whole team, all of her people that she works with her transaction coordinator, her buyer's agent, the whole thing. There was like 6 of them. They went to Baskin-Robbins, they all sat and they bought ice cream, and they had somebody take a picture of all of them. They then took an actual picture of just their ice cream by itself, and they plugged that information into the testimonial template that we have, which is designed to get more video testimonials. So in the template is essentially asking for video testimonials from your clients, but in exchange, you're giving a $10 or a $5, whatever gift card. Obviously, RESPA rules, follow what you can do, but in that, there's a picture of her and her actual team holding an actual Baskin-Robbins ice cream. Sounds so simple. And then at the bottom, there's a call to action that says, click here to leave us a review. The first 10 people who do, we're sending you a $10 Baskin-Robbins gift card. She got 14 testimonials off of one email, off of an email list of 117 people. It was a very small email list. So it is so powerful when you put yourself behind it, right? And you actually do what you're trying to get someone to do, right? And I think that if you can show that you're willing to do it, it's a great thing. And who doesn't love ice cream? Go buy yourself a freaking ice cream and do that. And then the other templates, there's lots of them, but the idea is that is one of your emails that you send out every month. So you replace your traditional email marketing calendar with the same type of content you'd be posting, if not the exact content you would be posting on Instagram or on social. And one of the other ones, which is my personal favorite, is what I call follow me on the gram email. So everyone's like, how do I get everybody from my Facebook over to my Instagram? How do I get people from my email list over to my Instagram? I have what we call follow me on the gram email. So you create excitement around an upcoming series that you're producing, and you share that in an email template. You send it out. The idea is that you're cross-pollinating people from your email list. Everyone's coming over to your Facebook or to your Instagram, wherever you're sending them, right? Some people here might hate Instagram, but it is relevant on any social platform. But the idea there, right, is if you create a system around it, so you're posting a template that you would want to use on Facebook to get people over to your Instagram. If you post the same thing on Instagram, you're using that in an email, and you're kind of creating this life cycle of my content and my email working very synonymously. And again, the idea is like nobody has time to be making new content for every single platform. So leverage where you can, but do it in a more authentic way and use your face.
Yeah. And I love that it's a fun way. That's one of the tenets of my coaching. Hello, if it's not fun, you're not doing it right. Right. Because a lot of women feel like they're boring, but I'm not gorgeous. I'm not young. I'm not, we always are our worst critic. And it's so stupid because, I know that you're into the psychology of getting into the client brains, which is so on point. What I teach is you need to layer, or rather use as a foundation, your client experience. Go through exactly what the buyer is going to experience at every level. Say, obviously, the listing queen, what the seller is going to experience at every level, but your experience starts on content, whether that's email, Instagram, Facebook. That's their first purview into you. That's their first view into you. And if you just look vanilla or whatever, but the thing that I'm hearing is repeat with delight, right? I mean, that's what I'm pulling out of what you're saying. You're like, there's a strategy that whatever you're solving for, right? Because you're like, okay, well, some people have a misconception that they have to create all this content, different for this, different for that. But really, if you can integrate it in an organized way, which includes slowing down, then that is the way to go. So that is amazing. Excellent. Okay.
I think one thing, Jen, real quick before you go into the next question, I think that there's something that you and I obviously are very aligned on, and I don't want anybody to miss it, which is that the ultimate goal in a real estate transaction is not to save ourselves time or ourselves money as the agent, right? I don't sell real estate. I have my license, but I literally use it to buy and sell my own real estate. But if you guys understand this, and you really understand this point that both Jan and I are making, which is that at the end of the day, what really, really matters is the experience of the buyer or the seller. How do they feel? What are they getting, right? So it's not about faster systems. It's not about more tech savvy this, or, oh my gosh, Michelle, I need this social media thing that can just post for me. That is not the solution. The solution is, or that solution that you're referencing, that's for you. And I also think that there's a lot of tech companies out there, and some people might throw tomatoes at me, and that's okay. But there's a lot of tech companies out there that are trying to make this experience for the agent so much faster and so much easier and so much better overall. But I think that those types of companies are missing that the experience that really matters is the consumer and how they feel using that agent. So the agent, you have an opportunity, in my opinion, to get rid of all of this fluff and all of this extra noise that's out there, and all of these like, oh my gosh, this company, did you know that they can do this for my CRM and they can make this faster and this easier? Because does that matter to the consumer? Is that going to change the experience of the buyer when they're working with you? Is that going to change the experience of the seller when you get ready to list their house? No, my house is for sale right now. And I can tell you that my agent and all of her fancy software, that has nothing to do with what I feel in my heart needing to sell our house so that we can move. It doesn't have anything to do with it. So focus on the consumer, focus on how I, as the buyer, or I, as the seller, feel, and you will be wildly more successful than the person who's just using the flashy.
Absolutely. I think that is bravo. I'm glad that you made that point. I know that we're running out of time because I like to be bright, be brief, be gone. I want to ask you one more question. You talk about strategic DM messaging, and I get even on Facebook. So what I teach my clients is that you want to always be engaging your audience, and you also want to be growing your audience. So on Facebook, for example, you want to be friending people that are local to you, and then, going to their page, blah, blah, blah. And on Instagram, I'm not an expert. I consider Instagram what I play on, because I'm big on Facebook. So I just play on Instagram. But the DM messaging and the Facebook messaging, can you speak to what you mean by how do we make that strategic? What are your recommendations on that?
Yeah, and this is a very loaded question, but an excellent question. And what I will say is that there is a philosophy that I have created that is what we call the 45-20 rule. So it's Monday through Friday, 45 comments, 20 story replies, all 5 days of the week. And each of those 5 days, you are targeting an ideal client, and you have 2 repeat days. One of your days that, or like, let's just say it's Monday, you assign it to that. Is your loving on your existing following, right? So that means anybody who's following you, not people you are following, but anyone who's following you, you're going to go out, you're going to find 45 of them. You're going to do a comment on something on their feed. And if that same person also has a story up, you're going to do a story reply. And then the other repeat day is what we call your re-engage day. So anyone who you have had a conversation with before, you've maybe gone back and forth a few times, but maybe the conversation very organically or kind of naturally fizzled out, you're going to re-engage them. You're going to go see do they have a new story up? Do they have a new piece of content that they posted? How can you reignite the conversation? And so on those 2 days of the week, literally all you're doing is talking to either people that you want to stay top of mind with, or re-engaging a former conversation. Now, the other 3 days of the week are going to be very specific to the person. Who is your ideal client and where do they hang out? Not just figuratively, but like literally, where do they actually hang out? And where people get really hung up here is, if you're trying to sell real estate when you're not at home and when you're not at work, what do you do that you could generate business from or do? Right. And I always use myself as an example because it's easy. But because I live on a military base or just off of it, right? If I were to say tomorrow, I'm going to just focus on selling real estate, who is my ideal client? Where do I go all the time that could easily help me generate business? One of them is on base, right? With all of the other military wives and going and being part of a big organization for military moms. My husband is also the head strength and conditioning coach for the Best Rangers. So the guys who are doing what they call BRC, they have their own Instagram page, and who consumes their Instagram page, right? Other families and wives and people that are supporting them. So essentially on this day in my tracker, let's just say I assign it to Tuesday, all I'm doing is engaging on people who fit that ideal client avatar. And I'm breaking it down between hashtags, accounts, and geotags, and I'm executing the 45-20. Now, really, there's a lot more to it, but the idea is that when you send an initial message, you're not asking for business. You're not going in for the kill. You're not saying, hey, thanks so much for following me. You are truly, genuinely just being curious and acting out of curiosity. And the thing I always tell people is, how many touch points do you have to have on average before you convert a lead? Industry average is 6 to 8. Google it, right? Like that's what the industry average is for any real estate agent before they can convert a lead. So you have to understand that there may be 6 to 8 conversation points between you and that person back and forth, before you can actually go in for the kill, as they say, right? Or, hey, can I take you out for coffee? I'd love to like pick your brain. Or, hey, I'd love to take you out for coffee and talk about your buying or selling needs, right? So before you can ask that, you have to be willing to get to those 6 to 8 touch points. And what our strategy teaches you is how to expedite that 6 to 8, where you would normally have to pick up the phone and call them every 2 weeks or call them every week and just keep that conversation going, right? Instead of 6 to 8 weeks, it could be 6 to 8 days. It could be 6 to 8 hours, right? It really can shrink dramatically if you focus on the strategic aspect of what to say, how to say it, and then how to intuitively turn the conversation from, hey, we're talking about coffee or our dog, to, hey, can I ask you if you're interested in buying or selling?
Yes. Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I think what I take from that is one to many. You want to identify, when you were talking about, if I were going to be a realtor, where would I go? What is normal? What do I like? That's what I call, in my strategy, the one to many. That's one of the visibility plans, points. And so I agree with you on that. And then you're coming from a place of curiosity. And I think that CEOs, which is what we all are as entrepreneurs, we need to come from a place of curiosity, because you touched earlier on when people brag, right? Or they want to make sure that, hey, I've done already 8.2 million, and I'm in the top 1%, I'm in the top 5%, whatever it is. And that's very convincing energy, and it's very selfish energy. Whereas instead, if we really are client-centric in this whole thing, that's what I've heard. You come from that place of curiosity about them, you're going to be more likable. And then you can expedite, or as you say, shorten the time that it takes to really have that person trust you enough to have them into your home so that you can give them a beautiful listing presentation that invites them into your client experience. So any final words that you want to share with our listing queens?
Yeah, all I will say is take the time and live in that curiosity mindset. And what being curious means is just asking more questions, talking to them and asking them questions. So if all you do is spend the same hour that you would normally spend on social, but you do it with intention of asking questions throughout that hour versus just aimlessly scrolling,
yes,
your life will be wildly different. Your results will be wildly different. And I think that we all come from naturally a scarcity mindset. We all want to make money. We all want to be successful in our own right. But I will tell you that the most success I have ever had, and the reason I believe that, my company and my organization is where it is today, is because all I do is talk to people and care about them personally. And if there's money to be made on the other end of it, awesome. But that's not why we get into it. That's not why I establish a relationship. And I think that that is something that we have gotten very far away from as an industry. And I think that all of you guys listening to this have an opportunity to be that difference and stand out from the agent that makes somebody feel slimy. Don't be that guy,
Exactly. Don't be that guy / girl. All right.
Yes,
well,
exactly.
Thank you so much. I love the word intention came out loud and clear, and stand out. Ladies, this has been amazing. Now, where can people find you, Michelle?
Easiest way is Instagram, Berman Media Social. Berman is BERMAN Media Social, all one word. If you type in Michelle Berman-Mikel, I'll come up that way too. But I answer every single message. I am the only person you will talk to on there. There is no AI or automated message or someone speaking on my behalf. And I love chatting with all of you guys. So if if there's anything that you heard that you want clarification on, or just want to talk more about, that's definitely the fastest way to get me.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you so much for being a
You're
part
so
of
welcome.
the Queen Summit.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. Bye.